Okay, it's recording now. Okay, with the holidays coming up, I'm going to start sharpening my knives. First one I'm going to do is Watanabe Kaibou. It's a heavy cutter knife. It's probably 2 to 3 times the thickness of a regular blade this size. But I'm doing a pork roast with the bone in, and when I go to work on it, I'm going to want a heavier blade so that when I hit the bone I don't have to worry about the edge chipping. Some of the things that I have ready for me: my sink bridge, which my father-in-law made. I use that shelf liner, rubberized shelf liner. You've probably seen it. Stone, no go nowhere. These are kind of textured on the back, so anything, wet paper towel will keep them from sliding around too much. A glass of water is for rinsing off the stone. Towel for drying things off. And so things are pretty much in the where they belong. I'm wearing a glove because I plan on removing some side metal here. I'm going to start thinning my edge. I don't know if you can see it in there, but when these are made, they're not sharpened on flat stones. When they're made, they're used on big wheels. So this blade road is almost always carved in, and I like to flatten that out. Just makes for a smoother cut. Slices easier. So every time I sharpen it, I take a little bit more out of there to get it going flat. So let's get started. I'm using a Shapton Glass stone, a 1000. I like these stones because it's literally wet and go. Some stones you have to actually soak for, water stones, you have to soak for a while. And if you're using oil stones, well, that's a whole different ball of wax. So that one you kind of have to go with the manufacturer on that one. On this particular knife, I'm going to be guiding it really with this hand. That's the driver. The pressure on the stone is going to be here, pushing on that bevel, so the bevel stays in contact. One problem with doing this, and it takes a little practice, if your fingers are big, you drag on the stone. If you drag on the stone, you're grinding finger, not steel. You will burn holes in your fingers. So be aware of where your fingers are and how much pressure you're applying, because it'll happen quick. So you just slide that along. You can already see it's cutting pretty fast. The black stuff is steel being removed. And you do a few. Now, there is no one way to sharpen a knife. There are dozens and dozens of ways. You want to try different ways. There's plenty of videos on YouTube on how to sharpen knives. Unfortunately, on YouTube there's also many ways not to sharpen knives. You can already see how shiny that's starting to get in that area. So you get a little bit more on that tip. And when you're thinning a knife like this, you're making that edge more consistent, and easier to use. So I'm going kind of slow here, and trying to keep consistent with the number of strokes in the different areas. Remember, consistency, as in with everything, will get the job done. And take a look, make sure you're hitting where you need to be hitting. So it's getting dirty. Take a look. And see, I'm not quite all the way over here, not quite over here. You'll find that a lot of people have problems with tips and heels because they don't want to spend the time it takes to get that done right. So again, see, all the pressure, this is just the driving force. Make sure it's all the way on there. See all that gunk starting to collect up on the stone? Yeah, that has to go off. There we go. It's getting there. And that's where that comes in handy. Whoops. Now, this doesn't just apply to Japanese knives. It also applies to Western knives. You'll notice people will sharpen their knife but never thin it. Well, what you end up with is a very thick edge that even though it'll shave arm hair, it's so thick that it's wedging into the food and you can't cut with it. So you've got to thin those out every so often, and it's a lot of work. Cheers. Alrighty, I've finished the amount of flattening I'm going to do this time. You probably see a bit of a difference there. There, you see it there. So I'm not going to start working on the edge, but as usual, when you put some heavy use on the stone, you want to make sure it's flat. Using a DMT extra coarse, they're very hard stones, but they will dish with a lot of use. I think that's all stone. I don't know if you can see that, but you can see a dish spot right there in the middle. Trying to get that out. I believe in flat stones. That's a lot. These are very hard stones. Take a lot of work to dish them out. So yeah, you see them at first and you go, oh my god, it's so thin. Well, they're thin, but they're not, they don't wear very On a stone that's this hard, one little slip, and you've ground off that edge you've been trying to make. So it's important to be careful with this kind of stone. While it's a fantastic stone for some things, it is a pain in the butt for others. It's like if you're sharpening away and for some reason you don't think about what you're doing for a second, you grind, bring your edge across there like that. This is hard and fast cutting enough, it would just take that entire section of edge away, and you gotta start all over again. So you don't want to do that. Know your angle, know your path. Now, I do these usually about 16, sometimes a little bit more, on this blade. It doesn't take long. If you keep it's easier to keep a sharp knife sharp than it is to put a new edge and sharpen the dull knife. Trust me, I've worked on some shuns where it took 3 days just to get it to the point where I could start even getting to the edge. Needless to say, I don't sharpen shuns anymore. Again, different people have different ways of doing this. This is the way I do my knives. I'm taking a little bit of what Murray Carter put out. Some friends of mine have opened up their own businesses